Hi, welcome back to Fresh Faces, New Ideas. My name is David. If you like the channel and you'd like to help support me, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. So for this video, we're going to go over the press conference from Georgia. So what happened in Georgia is they passed their election overhaul bill. I've gone over it. It's not a good bill. There's a lot of things in it that hurt people voting. There are things that kind of help them, but it's not a help in overall. Currently, there's something like 350 bills nationwide in order to restrict voting. There are some states that are working against that. However, in response to this, the Major League Baseball has pulled their All-Star game out of Georgia. There's been potential boycotts for the Major League Baseball. There have been potential boycotts for Coke. There have been potential boycotts for Delta, things like that. So, for the record, them pulling out of the state does hurt the state. It absolutely does. And people have called to not boycott the state. Stacey Abrams has said it. Other activists have said, hey, don't boycott the state. It's not going to help the people. So the MLB does this. They pulled out. They're going to have the All-Star game elsewhere. Now, there is a difference. Massive sports teams like this, they pull out from time to time anyway. You see sports franchises relocate not all the time, but occasionally they relocate to bigger markets. Most recently, for the NBA, the Seattle franchise relocated to Oklahoma City. So all that infrastructure and everything is just gone in Seattle. I mean, there was talk about an expansion team going back to Seattle, but all of that revenue and everything was moved to somewhere else. So that's what's going to happen with the baseball game. It's going to be moved elsewhere. So we're going to watch the George Kemp and some of the other people there, their press conference on it. The volume is really low, so I'm going to try to keep it well. I'm also going to include in the comment section a link to Bo of the Fifth Column's video. He did a video about this, just talking about all of the things that Republicans have tried to cancel over the last couple of years. So while you remember hearing them talk about cancel culture being too far, please take a look at his video. I'm a big fan of his. I think he does a really good job. Just look at his video and just see how he's, just some of the things that they've gotten mad about and tried to cancel different things over the last couple of years. All right, so let's check out the video.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me thank all of you for being with us.
Now, I don't know why it's so quiet. This is max volume on this. It's almost max volume on my laptop as well.
Today, and I really want to thank so many grassroots conservatives and great elected leaders who are here with us. Yesterday, Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election.
So this is going to be the talking point. They caved to liberal activists. They caved to Stacey Abrams. They caved to Joe Biden. They're a major corporation, and keep in mind, in response to Delta saying, hey, we don't agree with this law, the Georgia Republicans tried to eliminate their tax breaks. Now, should Delta be paying more taxes in general? Probably. But is that how you answer to if your argument is you're going to hurt the people, your answer is we're going to cut your tax breaks because you disagree with us? This is very similar to something that happened when I think it was Chick-fil-A had a bonus. They had some type of gift card for NRA members, and it affected 8 people in Texas. And then when they said they were revoking it after, I think it was that Walmart shooting in El Paso, Texas attempted to take away some of their tax breaks. So the response from the Republicans to a lot of this is, if you disagree with us, we're going to go after your business. But if you try to go somewhere else, well, then you're caving to the liberal mob. So when these businesses start leaving, there's an actual argument to say that these blue states are failing. They're making these red states are failing. They make this ridiculous argument about poorly run blue state cities. So that's what's going to come out from some of this.
Integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community. In the middle of a pandemic, Major League Baseball put the wishes of Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden ahead of the economic well-being of hard-working Georgians.
Now, it's worth remembering that has absolutely nothing to do with this. So, Yes, there is an economic issue coming on. Yes, having the baseball game there would help boost the economy, but it is worth remembering, and while he is only a state member, it is worth remembering that that had Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff not won their races, the American Rescue Plan would have been $1.3 trillion smaller for all of that aid. So before they go after all of these people, remember the people in Georgia. Had you not voted in those 2 Democratic senators, your rescue package would have been at least a third the size of what we currently got.
Who were counting on the All-Star game for a paycheck. Georgians and all Americans should know what this decision means. It means cancel culture and partisan activists are coming for your business.
Keep in mind, I'm going to once again reference you to the video I'm going to clip in, the Beau of the Fifth Column video, talking about all of the boycotts and activism that they're arguing against is bad now because it's against them, but all of the things that they wanted. Now, I'm going to preface this before we keep going. I believe the reason they're going after trans people in sports is not just because they're using trans people as their new culture war thing. It's because they have argued against every major sports team, and he will go into this, but I'm going to reiterate it here. You have to cancel football, black guy kneeled. Have to cancel basketball, black guy kneeled. Have to cancel NASCAR, they didn't like racism. Now you got to cancel baseball because they don't like our voter integrity. So that's what's left. Hockey and soccer? That's about it.
Coming for your game or event in your hometown, and they're coming to cancel everything from sports to how you make a living. And they will stop at nothing to silence all of us. They don't care.
Now let's be clear. He is not being silenced. He is currently the governor speaking at a press conference. Every time they argue that you are being silenced, they do it from a national platform or a massive platform in order to say that they are not being heard. It is absurd. No, they're not being silenced. No, they are not being canceled. This is a company making a business decision. This happened in North Carolina. When North Carolina passed their trans bathroom bill, it cost them $3.7 million. This will cost Georgia more. This is not what the advocates had been saying. Stacey Abrams and people like her have said over and over again, do not do this. However, the decision is done, and it should help bring more light to what's going on in Georgia and all these other states.
About jobs, they don't care about our communities, and they certainly don't care about access to the ballot box. Because if they did, Major League Baseball would have announced that they were moving their headquarters from New York yesterday. In New York. In New York, they have 10 days of early voting. In Georgia, we have a minimum of 17.
So, I know I voted early, and it was certainly more than 10 days before the election. So I'm not sure how accurate this statement is.
With 2 additional Sundays that are optional for all counties in our state. In New York, you have to have an excuse to vote by absentee. In Georgia, you can vote absentee for any reason.
So there's 2 things to this. He's going to do a bunch of comparisons to New York and I think another state. I know he does another state later. I don't know the backgrounds to them. I haven't looked into them. Look, you should be able to do no absentee ballot. No excuse absentee ballot. However, part of the problem with this particular bill was originally it was supposed to cut down on it, and this is actually brought up later in the clip. It is also so just because they didn't put it in doesn't mean they didn't try.
You can do it securely. It's easier to vote in Georgia than it is in New York. Even more ridiculous is that MLB didn't cite a single reason that they disagreed with the bill in their statement.
All right, let's take a look about this. Major League Baseball statement on Georgia. Major League Baseball announced Friday will relocate the originally a little more week. Makes a statement. Major League Baseball fundamentally respects voting rights of all Americans and opposes restrictions to the ballot box. In 2020, MLB became the first professional sports league to join the nonpartisan civic alliance to help build a future which everyone participates in shaping the United States. We proudly use our platform to encourage baseball fans and communities throughout our country to perform their civic duties and actively participate in the voting process. Fair access to voting continues to have our game's wavering support. Okay, so it doesn't look like they actually said a specific thing, but it is the general standard that this bill is not as good as they're going to make it out to be.
Everyone standing here today, and those at home know why. Because the facts and the truth don't support their narrative. It's because
This is just a side note. I'm not sure how many of these people are vaccinated, but they should still be wearing masks. That's literally part of the CDC guideline. So this is kind of dumb here.
It's because the Election Integrity Act expands access to the polls.
By shutting them at 7 when there's 8-hour wait times, by removing the mobile units, by hiding the drop boxes inside of buildings, by lessening the amount of time you can have a absentee ballot responded to. That expands access to the polls. Look, there are some things that expand access to the polls. However, in areas that have these same issues, this will not help them. It will actually exacerbate it.
Ensures the integrity of the ballot box. Then why did MLB move the All-Star game yesterday? Because Joe Biden and Stacey Abrams have spent days lying to Georgians.
Now, he's going to go after Stacey Abrams a lot, and it's widely believed that she's going to be the gubernatorial nominee, I think, at 22. It is also worth mentioning that he ran against her in 18, I believe. 18 or 20. It was 18. So it's worth mentioning that because Brian Kemp, while being the current governor, running for governor then, was also the Secretary of State overseeing that election and refused to step down from his position to remove the view of bias. So he was in charge of the election he was running in. A statement in which he purged the ballot rolls in order to help him win. So there's that. That's why, because they are terrified of Stacey Abrams. They're terrified of the fact that Georgia went blue for the first time in decades, that 2 Democrats won Senate seats in Georgia. This is always the detailed response to this.
And the American people. The truth is that Joe Biden hasn't read the bill, and Stacey Abrams is raising millions off the fake outrage that she has created.
And I guarantee you there is no way you will have any type of fundraising that will be required you will use this as a talking point. Now look, the reason Stacey Abrams is fundraising off of this is because she's using it for the legal challenges and to help expand the rights of votes in other states. That's what her project, Fair Fight, I think she's Fair Fight. Stacey Abrams. Yeah, she's Fair Fight. They're working in other states. So she does actually need that money for things other than Georgia.
Even the Washington Post has given President Biden 4 Pinocchios for his false attacks on our new law.
Yes, because so there's actually I looked into this because I watched these videos before because I want to make sure that I have all the information before, so I'm not always looking into it. When I'm ultimately live streaming, more often I will look into things as I watch them. The reason for this one is it wasn't made clear about when he was discussing. So he was talking about actual ballots, opening the ballots from 7 to 7 instead of 7 to 5, and that was whether he was talking about early voting or day of voting. Either way, 7 p.m. is not enough time to have the ballots open because people don't get off of work until 5. This is part of the overall expansion that needs to be done. Election day should be a national holiday. Polls should be open all day long, not till 7. And look, I understand that they're poll workers and it is hard for them. But it needs to be open, because if I'm waiting online for 8 hours and I get out of work at 5, I can't vote. Therefore, you have denied me my right to vote, because I can't take off work, because then I will lose my job and then I will go hungry.
Not to mention that his own home state of Delaware has no early voting and requires an excuse to vote absentee. But as Stacey Abrams called,
Joe Biden has not been in charge of Delaware, I don't think ever. I know he was the senator from there, but like with Amazon arguing with Bernie about Vermont, just because you're the senator does not mean you have the power to change the state legislature. So, yes, I don't know what's going on in Delaware, but Joe Biden doesn't have control over Delaware any more than John Ossoff has control over Georgia.
these states and their antiquated election laws Jim Crow 2.0? No, because for her and the partisan activists who support her, it's about raising money and obtaining more power. For them, it's not about the truth. It's not about the facts. Because here's the truth. SB 202 expands access to voting, secures ballot drop boxes around the clock in every county, expands weekends voting, protects no-excuse absentee voting.
Which was something that had to be changed, because let's be clear, originally in this bill, it ended Sunday voting and it ended no absentee ballots. No absentee ballot. No excuse mail-in ballots. It did that. They got pushback on that and ultimately realized we can't go this far. So his argument is it's not as bad as it could have been.
Levels the playing field on voter ID requirements, as well as streamlining election procedures.
Now, look, there's two things here. I have been very, very, very consistent on my idea for voter ID. You have one way to do it fairly. One way. Universal automatic registration, and you get mailed-in ID that costs you no money, and it costs nothing to replace. And if you do not have that ID, any other ID will suffice. That's it. That's the only acceptable. Any other roadblock is that. It needs to be from the government. It needs to be universal. It needs to be mailed for free. If you make it a driver's license, which is, like I've mentioned before, is not something that everyone has or has access to, because people like Brian Kemp shut down DMVs in certain areas, making it more difficult to get the driver's license, that's what the issue with voter ID is.
And yes, water can be provided to voters that are in line by election workers. And yes, we are not going to allow political organizations or anyone else to harass or electioneer voters who are waiting in line to vote within the 150-foot buffer.
So this is you can't give people water. So yes, it is true, it is set to third parties. Everyone is considered a third party if you're not an election worker. But these people they're waiting in line for 8 hours. So unless you have them set up a station, and unless you're going to provide them with the funding to do that, for however many thousands of people, for however long they're going to be able to do this, it is not a law that makes sense. Also, that has no impact on the vote.
Those are the simple facts. Free and fair elections are the foundation of who we are as a state and a nation. Secure, accessible, fair elections are worth the threats. They are worth the boycotts as well as the lawsuits.
It is worth mentioning over and over again when they talk about secure and safe elections. According to the Trump Department of Homeland Security, the 2020 election was the safest and most secure election in history. There is no voter fraud. It did not happen. So that doesn't make sense as an argument either.
I want to... I want to be clear. I will not be backing down from this fight, and neither are the people who are here with me today. We will not be intimidated, and we will also not be silenced. Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, and Delta may be scared of Stacey Abrams, Joe Biden, and the left, but I am not, and we are not.
They are not scared of these people because these people are not threatening them. The only people actually threatening these corporations are you and Republicans. You're threatening to boycott them. These people have been very, very clear. Hey, you have the ability to influence these lawmakers. Why? Because you give them donations. Also, because you produce so many jobs in their area. They have to listen to you based on that. So, the people who are really going after them are Republicans.
It's now my honor to turn the podium over to a great friend and a great Georgia Attorney General, Chris Carr.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody. Anybody who actually reads this bill quickly sees that it strengthens security.
I read the bill. I showed it to you. It does not.
Expands access and improves transparency in Georgia's elections. Again, anybody who actually reads this bill sees how comparing it to the Jim Crow era, one of the most tragic periods in American history, where human beings were killed and truly were prevented from casting their ballot. So
yes, while this is not directly Jim Crow in the sense that the Klan is not pulling up and murdering people, this is specifically targeted at racial minorities, and there have been judge rulings that things like this have happened and been targeted at racial minorities. And it has been well documented that certain areas in Georgia, specifically where minorities and heavily Democratic strongholds are targeted for things like longer voting lines, less ballot boxes, less DMVs, more changes to make it more difficult to vote. These things are well documented.
Is preposterous, irresponsible, and fundamentally wrong. We actually diminish the horrors of Jim Crow when we compare the unjustifiable abuses of those times with a photo ID requirement that applies equally to everyone, to expanded voting hours across the state, and to the assurance that the public has access to our electoral process. But that's exactly what Stacey Abrams, Joe Biden, Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, and so many others have shamefully been doing over the past several weeks. Every time Stacey goes on a late-night talk show, does a friendly podcast, or is a guest on MSNBC, every single word that she says is accepted as an undeniable fact. And that's also what many leaders in America are falling for right now, without doing their own due diligence. And it's not healing our nation.
Well, first off, I don't see how allowing less people to vote is healing our nation either. This is a stupid talking point. We're going to hear it every single time that Joe Biden tries to do something for bipartisanship. This is not healing the nation. This is bipartisanship. I don't see, look, you have to go, I generally believe it's Stacey Abrams. It is also undeniable that organizations like hers had a massive impact on the 2020 election. The work that they did in Georgia is undeniable. And that's what they're afraid of.
but further dividing us and causing real harm to real people, to real Georgians. So when we defend this bill in court, the Stacey Says standard will not apply.
I don't think that's a legal standard that anyone is going to use.
It will all be about the facts and the law. And with that, I want to turn it over to our great congressman from the western part of our state, Drew Ferguson.
Governor, Attorney General, thank you to all of you that are here today defending the openness and the fairness of our elections. I thank you. I have been appalled at the shockingly dishonest and disingenuous statements by not only Major League Baseball, but the corporate CEOs here in our state. What they are saying is wrong, and they should be ashamed. They owe an apology to the men and women that have voted to make sure that Georgia elections are both open and fair.
Let's keep in mind the standard he just set. Because they are lying, they should owe an apology. Now keep in mind for while he speaks, because he's going to drop some massive lies in what he says.
It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for corporate CEOs and other outside groups and organizations to call the men and women of the Georgia legislature racist. That is wrong, and it must end.
This is one of the dumbest talking points that Republicans do all the time. Being called racist is worse than being racist. In particular, do I find this particular bill racist? Yeah, I guess you can argue it is, but it is not explicitly racist. It is because of who it's targeting that it is viewed that way, because these issues tend to only affect minorities.
They should apologize now. On top of that, and most importantly, they should apologize to our fellow Georgians for robbing them of the paychecks and the livelihood that will come because of their actions.
Okay, let's be clear. If the Republicans, because this got blocked, if they attempt to remove the tax cuts from some of these corporations and they leave, that's not on the corporations. That's on you. And then would you apologize to those people? I doubt it.
It is unconscionable for a corporate CEO to put himself or herself ahead of the men and women that are working to make their company successful.
That's literally all they do. I mean, Amazon is the perfect example of this. I'm sure the MLB is better, and maybe Delta and Coke are probably better, but that is simply how they function in America.
Unconscionable for them to make statements that will cause harm to Georgia families, which is exactly what they've done. And we wait on their apology with bated breath. So you've got to ask yourself, why are they doing this? Why are they leaning in so heavily on Georgia, on a bill that does away with the false choice that has been pushed upon us for too many years, that you can either have incredible voter access or voter integrity? We should demand, and we can have.
Let's be clear. That statement is 100% true. We have both high voter integrity, but we don't have voter access. That is the issue. The voter integrity is not an issue. This idea that there is this voting fraud anywhere, or people, or the general Republican argument, people don't believe the results, is because you've been lying to them. There is no proof in voter fraud.
Both access and integrity, and this bill goes a long way towards doing that. So why are they doing it? Why are they going so hard after our great state? It is to set the table for another battle in Washington, D.C. over H.R. 1 for the Politicians Act.
Now, Remember what he just said. If you're lying, you owe us a... Oh, there's a closed caption. Wasn't there before? If you're lying, you owe us a apology. This is called For the People Act. And George, it's the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill. That's what it's called.
And Senate Bill 1. Now, that is a bill that nationalizes the election process. It makes our elections less secure.
Not true. He is lying already. It does actually allow for the nationalization of the election process. It does not make it less secure.
By making sure that all of the voting apparatus is centralized in one place. That is less secure than what we have today. It is a bill that uses money owned by the taxpayers of this country to publicly fund at a 6-to-1 match small dollar donations. And
yes, so what it does is public funding of elections instead of private financing of elections. So big corporations can buy your politicians. What public funding of elections does is if I give somebody $5, the government matches that money. This is for small politicians who aren't millionaires and don't have massive corporate backings to be able to compete with people who have those things.
Federal elections. That means that if you're a Georgian, your tax dollars in D.C. will be going to fund a candidate in New York City.
And you know what else it means? That a candidate in somebody in New York City, their tax dollars will be going to fund somebody in Georgia. And somebody from Texas will be in California. And somebody from California will be in Texas. So yeah. And you know what else? Some of these states already fund these states. New York and California help fund Kentucky. They help fund Missouri. And they might actually help fund Georgia. But I'm not going to look that up.
That is wrong. It is a bill that does away with ID requirements.
No, it does not. It says that if you do not have one, you have to sign an affidavit clarifying that this is who you are under penalty of law. It does not do away with ID requirements. It says that you are able to sign a bill, you sign a statement instead of showing an ID. It does not remove them.
Vote. That does not make our elections more secure. It does just the opposite. It is a bill that allows people that are not eligible to vote, that are in this country illegally, it gives them a ballot.
It does not do that either. Every single thing he has said so far has been a lie. Every single thing.
That is wrong. Most importantly, H.R. 1 and Senate Bill 1 are unconstitutional. And to all of the corporate CEOs...
I don't know why. What makes it unconstitutional? What H.R. 1 does is expand the ability for people to vote. It is an expansion on the Voting Rights Act. That's what it is. You just because you say something's unconstitutional doesn't mean it is. It's the same thing as saying voter ID, vaccine passports are unconstitutional. Based on what?
CEOs, to the corporate board members, to Major League Baseball, and other entities, you run your businesses on a set of corporate bylaws and corporate governance. And it would be tantamount to you throwing that out and saying that you will run your company how you damn well please. That is wrong. It is unconstitutional, and at some point, the shareholders of your company are going to...
Wait a minute. That one lost me because I'm trying to figure out how a corporate boardroom is unconstitutional. Now, maybe I just got lost in his business analogy, and I think he just got lost in his business analogy. Just wanted to say something else that was unconstitutional. But I'm pretty sure our Constitution doesn't require you to do stuff with your board members, because I don't think those were things by the time the Constitution was written.
Begin to question your fiduciary responsibility and ask, are you doing the right thing by your company and by your employees and by your constituents and your customers? Because
the only people who are going to ask that are the people of the board, whether they are making money. Because otherwise, the companies don't give a shit. They don't care what their workers and stuff are saying, unless they're unionized.
You're going down a path that makes absolutely no sense because it is wrong, it is disingenuous, and it is a lie. Today, the New York Times put out a piece, 16 points about what is wrong with Georgia's election bill. It is laughable. It is a stretch to be kind, but I expect nothing less.
Now, all this guy is here to do is just make statements and fearmonger. At no point has he backed up any of the things he has said. Everything he said about HR1 and SR1 was wrong. There is no statement of what's wrong in this New York Times. He had his weird diatribe on the corporations, but this guy's just here to fearmonger and just make statements.
From a paper that is wallowing in a gutter of unethical practices and intellectual dishonesty. We have to go every single day after the truth. The Attorney General and the Governor have both said it. We will win this argument based on the facts, not on the false narrative perpetrated by the far left. This is about making sure that every single American has the right to vote and to choose their own future in this country. If these laws go through, you will lose your individualism, you will lose your ability to make a living, you will lose your personal freedoms.
Now, look, because he has wound this up, I don't know what bill he's talking about. Is he still referring to HR1? Because it does none of those things. Even their bill does none of those things. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about, and I don't think he does either.
Stand up against this, and I am proud to stand here with these brave men and women, with our governor and our attorney general, to say no more. We will win this battle. Thank you.
Well, thank you, General Carr and Congressman Ferguson and all of you for being here today. With that, we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, so we're not going to listen to questions. I don't really care. It wasn't really worth it. Although the only thing in the questions was, one of the first questions is, if the MLB came to you and said, will you negotiate on some of these points? What would you negotiate? He's like, well, I'm not going to answer hypothetical. And they're like, well, what points are you going to negotiate on? And he never gave an answer because there aren't none. So look, should Major League Baseball have left? No, because it does hurt the Georgians. Does it make a point? Yes. I don't know what's going to happen with the other corporations, but it is worth noting that while the Republicans complain about boycott, whether it's cancel culture, Mr. Potato Head, and all these other things, they've actively tried to cancel almost every major sport. And America. They tried to cancel America. So, look, this is not a good bill. I don't agree with the boycott. I don't know where it goes from here. I do hope HR1 gets passed. One of the things that was not touched on at any point during that, or even in the questioning, was the ability for the legislator to take over the Secretary of State and the vote and the state boards to certify the election. That's never brought up. That is an unbelievable aspect of this bill. So, thank you for watching. If you like this content and you'd like to listen to more, please like and subscribe. Slam that bell button so you hear every time I post a video. And follow me on Twitter at FacesIdeas. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.